This is the Court Leader's Advantage, a podcast series for court professionals and by court professionals. Brought to you by thecourtleader.net and in cooperation with NACM, the National Association for Court Management. Welcome to the Court Leader's Advantage podcast series. This month and in January, we're going to talk about the 5 biggest issues and the 5 biggest opportunities facing young workers today. This month, we'll consider the 5 biggest issues, which includes work-life balance, job security, mental health and well-being, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and career development and growth opportunities. Our moderator is Erika Schmid, Supervisor for the Multnomah Circuit Court in Portland, Oregon. Our panel consists of Samantha Wallis, Assistant Court Administrator for the District Court in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Daniel Meza Rincón, Deputy Juvenile Court Administrator for the Utah Court System in Salt Lake City. Victoria Murray, Business Intelligence Analyst and Supervisor for the Maricopa Superior Court in Phoenix, Arizona. Carrie Summers-Nomura, Program Coordinator for the Clackamas County Circuit Court in Oregon City, Oregon. And Courtney Whiteside, Director of the Municipal Court in St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you all for joining today's podcast. So let's join Erika as we discuss the 5 biggest issues facing young workers today.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 biggest issues that face young workers today in our court system. So we're going to jump in right away to our questions. First up, Samantha. Many young workers prioritize work-life balance and value flexibility in their jobs. They prioritize their personal time and their life outside of work. Flexible working arrangements like remote work or hybrid setups are really desired. How has your court shifted towards remote or hybrid work? And what struggles or advantages have you faced if you did not shift?
Well, I work in North Idaho. I don't think Idaho is well known for its advancements in technology. That being said, I personally do have a very flexible schedule, but I think because I have a flexible schedule, I have to weigh that against a work-life balance because I am allowed to be flexible and I do have a partial hybrid job. I have found that there is a high expectation that administrators and managers be available 24/7. It makes maintaining a work-life balance difficult when we have the technology to be available at any time. For example, my office phone is always forwarded to my cell phone. I'm frequently away from my desk, but that also means that people can call me at any time. I also downloaded the Outlook app on my phone, so I am deliberately reachable 24/7. I know that I have felt an enormous pressure to respond if I receive a text, phone call, email after normal hours. Once people get used to you responding, I found that they come to expect it. That expectation, again, puts you between a rock and a hard place where you kind of have to choose between a healthy work-life balance and pleasing your employers and coworkers. You have to weigh those high expectations and the pressure to be quickly responsive against the stress that causes. Sometimes I feel like if you choose a healthy work-life balance, it might cost you at work because you might be labeled as, not a team player, or you might wonder if your decision might cost you a bonus or at worst a promotion later on. I think that internal struggle is a big issue for the younger generations in the workforce. I know that, again, I personally struggle with it because I do feel a pressure to be available and work hard. I've been in situations where if I don't respond as quickly as some people would like, they have emailed my boss and said that I haven't responded to them. While I recognize that a work-life balance is important for my health, I also know that I need to pay my bills. So it just creates so much pressure. Again, I think there's just an expectation that comes with being younger that your time is almost less valuable, especially if you don't have a family. I think, again, technology allowing us to be that available has put more pressure on younger generations.
Very valid and understanding. Does anybody else have any experiences with challenges in facing work-life balances?
I don't even know what a work-life balance looks like. I mean, my kid at home has his own keyboard, so when I'm working on my laptop or something, he'll say I'm working too, and it's like, so that gives you any insight to my work-life balance. But I think Sam makes a really great point. I mean, we're accessible 24/7, and a lot of times the expectation is that we answer. And while my junior leadership and senior leadership teams here, I don't have that same expectation for them. And every once in a while, I'll be working on a day and I'll call and ask them a question and they'll be like, do you realize it's Saturday? And I'm like, oh, my bad. Don't, I'll talk to you on Monday about it, whatever. But I think that Sam is just dead on. I mean, the pressure is just absolutely there to respond. And I'm not one of the younger ones in the workforce by any means, but I've had to work really hard to make sure that people are respecting work-life balance and that they aren't compiling so much leave time that they start losing time. So, I mean, I think that's, it's very difficult. So nice job, Sam. I think that's dead on.
I mean, I will agree. I mean, I think our jobs are very fast paced, and a lot of the times, that is something that entices young employees, but then also scares people away because of the demands of and the nature of the job. And I think individuals in leadership positions need to be very intentional with sort of setting expectations. I think work-life balance is something we have to be super intentional about, and we have to lead by example. So if we are supervising or over a team, as hard as it is, we have to lead by example so that they know what's expected of them. I will say that if we don't take care of ourselves, we won't be able to give our best. And I think that's why we're all in the roles that we're in. We want to serve the community. We want to serve the youth and families if you work in juvenile courts. And so we have to take care of ourselves in order to better serve our communities. And so one thing that I do is I take my vacations seriously, and I tell my team members to do so as well. And Sam, like you, I used to have and I still do. I have my Google on my phone, but whenever I go on vacation, I delete the app. And I tell everyone, when I come back, I delete the app because I know when I'm there, I'm going to be tempted to look at it. And it's almost like the first and second day I have to okay, Daniel, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I don't have access. I don't take my work laptop. So it's like I cannot get on my email. And I found that it's really helpful for me to then step away, recuperate, get some strength back, and then come back with a new and renewed sort of mindset. So
economic uncertainty and historic recessions have made job security a significant concern. Burdened with vast amounts of student loan debt, young workers do not find themselves willing to invest in a job when others can pay way more. This often leads to high turnover rates, lack of interest in positions, and extended vacancies. What have you done in your court to avoid high turnover rates or become a more enticing employer for young workers?
Appreciate the question because I feel like it's very timely. We're still in the process of figuring out what to do. The reality is that high turnover rates are a thing. It's the reality, at least in Utah. And so I think what I love is that our administrative office with our leaders and judges, everyone statewide acknowledges the issue. We know it is an issue. We're feeling it. And we know that there are things that we can control and things that we cannot control. And, there are more opportunities out there where the pay is much higher. So why would young workers come work for us? So we know that the pay is an issue, and we are coming up with a plan to ensure that that we're requesting or we're asking the legislature for higher wages. But we also know that that is out of our control. What I do love that our system is doing is that we're very transparent about it. So our team members across the state know that we have their backs, that we acknowledge that that's an issue, and that we're doing everything that we can in order to ensure a higher wage for them. So that's one thing. So we know that there are things that we cannot control, but then there are things that we can control. And so we're trying to focus on those things and try to act now. So we know that the job is also, as we mentioned before, very demanding, very hard. We have recently started running focus groups with our team members statewide to understand what elements of their job makes it extremely difficult. What could we do in order to ease sort of those pressures so that it would be a job that people want to stay in? We're also looking at how we can best sort of drive home, even during our interviews, the why we do this work, right? I mean, I feel like public service is a calling. And I don't know that any of us got into it because we knew we were going to make the most money, right? And so, and really understanding that why and ensuring that we emphasize the importance of public service and the impact that we can have for families and youth and individuals that we serve and that we either come in contact with or that the work that we do sort of helps. And so we're trying to employ sort of those, having those conversations even from the interviewing or interview process and ensuring that individuals are coming into our team members with like knowing the why. And so in addition to that, I mean, there are other things that we have been able to implement. And we talked a little bit about this in the previous question, like flexible work schedules. So we do have some positions are fully remote, which is a really good thing for newer employees, some hybrid opportunities, different work hours. So instead of the 8 to 5, maybe like 7:30 to 3:30. I mean, those flexible things. We also have opportunities for exercise time. So team members can actually use up to an hour and a half a week. And it would be deemed as work time, and they have to use it toward exercise. Our judiciary has done really great things in the last year to implement mental health resources, and I know we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But we're really coming alongside our workforce and saying we're hearing you. We know that there is sort of like secondary trauma that's involved in the work that you do, and we want to make sure that you have the resources to be able to work through those. We have education assistant programs. We also have a mentorship program. And so we continue to work on all of these things that we have control over. I think one last thing I'll say before I keep going on is we have done a lot of work to enhance our work culture. I think that's huge when it comes to retaining employees. And so we're providing sort of this collaborative team approach to the way that we do things, and we emphasize that. We have and encourage team building activities. We have wellness councils, in most of our districts. We encourage a culture of recognition, which I think it's big. And we have, programs such as, gift card programs. When somebody goes above and beyond, we have the ability now to give bonuses, which we didn't have a long time ago. And in recent years, we've moved toward a performance-based sort of structure where, at the end of the year, our leadership can recommend individuals for a raise given their performance. And so I think a lot of those things really help build a workplace that's enticing to new employees that, okay, we may not be able to pay everything yet. We're working on, we're working on that, but there are other things that will make the job attractive to new employees. And it certainly makes it attractive to me as well.
Does anybody else have any insight on job security or retaining workers that they've been doing in their courts?
When we discuss pay, one of the things that I like to, when I'm encouraging people to apply, is to also think of the benefits that come along with working for a government agency. The public student loan forgiveness program is a big sell, I think, especially if you have a more advanced degree and have a lot of student loan debt. So we really try to focus on the benefits and what we can give people. We have pet insurance, we have new life indemnity, and all this other kind of stuff that you can get for such a low cost compared to what it would cost you if you were to go privately and try to get that same insurance.
As you touched upon, Daniel, we are going to get into some mental health and well-being. So, Carrie, mental health is a growing concern for a lot of young workers, with many young workers dealing with anxiety, stress, burnouts. The amount of time somebody's like, how are you dealing with your burnout? I'm like, the thing I've been living with for 4 years? Fantastic. They are advocating for workplaces that offer mental health support, such as access to therapy, wellness programs, and positive work culture. All things I advocate for as well, but I'm a very do as I say, not as I do, which we all should be working on. So how does your court support mental health, well-being, and provide a positive work culture?
So this has been a huge topic in our court, and I'm not sure. I kind of got the same vibe when I was at the annual conference that this is becoming much more of an issue within the court. And I'm not just simply referring to our staff, but also just the interaction with our customers that are also struggling with some kind of mental health diagnoses. So, if we think about the increasing numbers of people who are coming to our court, for example, that are in some kind of acute mental health crisis. I find it really interesting, and this is my own interjection because I've come from working in nonprofits, specifically in social work and child welfare, and so trauma-informed care is like my jam. But coming into the judicial system, it has not been, at least here. And so it's been very interesting to try to marry the two. There's been some resistance. There's been, all kinds of different things, but we are moving the needle. It's very slow, but we are moving the needle. Recently, I was talking to one of our deputies with our civil sheriff's unit that's here in the court, and he really compared the jail as to like a mental health hospital. And I was like, can we like take a moment and unpack that? Like, you're really telling me that the jail is much more, mental health related, meaning that most of the folks that are up there, most of our inmates are struggling with some kind of mental health problem. And we're just simply not, I don't think we're doing enough, but we have a plan. So that's the good news. We started about a year, maybe actually it's been about 2 years. We partnered with the county and we provided mental health first aid training to all of our staff. But what we found was that although it was a really good introduction to mental health, and I think it did help a lot of staff folks, it didn't give very specifics about what to do when you have someone at your window at the court that is having a complete meltdown and you don't really, a lot of us are not skilled in what to do. And so we've kind of started thinking a little bit further. In fact, our own, the Oregon Judicial Department just had a great webinar on de-escalation. And in that, the state court administrator's office mentioned that they are working to build a behavioral health series, which I am really excited about because, I think that's going to really help all the courts in Oregon. But with regard to sort of where we are right now, I try to provide, like when we know that one of our judicial offices is having a really tough trial, for example, whatever it might be, I've created like resource lists and just some really helpful tips about how to practice self-care. And it's been very interesting. Traditional court workers are kind of like, this is silly. I don't need to do this. I've been doing this for 25 years. And it's like, but you recognize that they're also really stressed out. And so, again, we're sort of slowly, I would say, moving the needle. Things like, in every monthly newsletter that I create, I put a self-care section. And so, like last month, it was, a video, one of my favorite videos called Breathe. And it's just a little kiddo talking about what happens when they're flipping their lid, right? That they're kind of, having this temper tantrum. And, she uses a little sensory jar where it's got like glitter and things. And you just kind of, okay, I'm having a hard time. I'm going to flip it and I'm going to watch the glitter fall and I'm going to take some deep breaths. And as silly as that sounds to some folks, I made a bunch of those bottles at home. And it has been very interesting how many staff members have come to my office to ask for one for their desk because I said, hey, they're free. So it's just little things like that. I know we mentioned before, we do have a therapy dog that comes twice a month. We partnered with an agency here in Portland, and I'm pretty sure that Multnomah does too. Do you guys go through Dove Lewis, the PAC program?
Yes, we
Yeah.
have therapy dogs that come through for like treatment courts and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we have our regular dog, Jones is his name, and he comes, the first and the third Thursday every month. And it has been really interesting to see, not only does Jones have his favorites because people have treats on their desks, but a lot of our staff are like, is this the day Jones is coming? And that's just a quick little break just to get down. I mean, we've got judges that have gotten down the floor with one of the dogs and just played. It's like this release. So some other things to just really, really quickly mention is that I think it really starts with onboarding, and that's something I'll talk about a little bit later. But just really trying to provide a lifeline to staff members. I think we're all very used to, you get, maybe a clerk on board, and it's like, judges want the clerk to work like yesterday in the courtroom. And it's like, well, let's slow down a little bit and get them a good foundation. And that too has been sort of a battle, but boy, has it really paid off when we have taken the time to let people on board in a really natural way instead of being in such crisis mode. So I think we're focusing more on self-care. We're really trying to meet people where they're at, and everyone's sort of at a different space, especially right now, given what's going on in our society. So just the unrest, I would say.
All very good points. And as you pointed out, yes, we in Oregon have been really tapping into more training for mental health, de-escalation, how to handle customers that come through the courthouse who are having their own mental health crises, and how we do trauma-informed care. Everybody kind of laughed at me when I first started supervising, and I created something called a self-care basket. Basically, whenever somebody has gone through that murder trial or gone through that really lengthy something that is very emotionally exhausting, and they might not get that little gift card reward because they didn't necessarily do something awesome, but they did something that was emotionally or mentally struggling for them. I tell them to come get something from the self-care basket. And the self-care basket consists of bath bombs, fuzzy socks, treats, chocolate, candy, little fidget toys, stuff like that. So it's amazing to see how excited some of my clerks are when I say, you made it through a very difficult trial, come get something for yourself. And it's that kind of just little, oh, I get to treat myself to something because I did something good. And I survived in some way or another. That really opens up them and makes them feel a little more a part of things. But anybody else, is anybody else doing anything to promote better mental health and well-being in their courts?
We have, as a court system, provided access to two different resources for our teams statewide. The first one is called TAVA. And actually, the judiciary pays for 6 therapy sessions per plan year for our employees and a dependent. And in addition to that, our courts have provided access to all of our employees to an app called OnMind. And they offer, again, it's an app. You can have it on your phone. They offer really grounding videos on all different types of things. It's just a lot of resources that can help individuals walk through certain scenarios or different things. And that is available to all of our employees, and the judiciary covers the cost for that. It's available to employees and also a dependent or a family member or another friend. And so those are some of the things that we've done in our courts to sort of come alongside that need.
Idaho has done something pretty similar to Daniel's. Or to Utah, I should say. It's through our insurance, and even the counties do it too, but you get 7 free counseling sessions. It's through, I can't remember what the program is called, but it's virtual. But yeah, you get 7 free sessions per incident. So it's not necessarily like per year. So if you have several horrible trials or horrible grand juries or what have you, and so that's something that they've recognized as important and really tried to implement.
We'll talk a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion now. So Victoria, in regards to DEI, young workers are increasingly focused on whether their employees are genuinely committed to DEI initiatives, because some might say, others are doing. They are concerned about workplace discrimination, representation of minorities, the inclusive policies that ensure a fair environment for all employees. So, what DEI programs and support does your court provide?
So, DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think it has become somewhat of a buzzword for some people. And so I'd like to focus less on the first letter and more on the second, which is equity. And if you create an equitable environment, you will get diversity and inclusion as a result of that. So one way to get equity in your court is to first talk to your employees, the ones that are actually doing the frontline work every day, the ones who will become the supervisors in the future and who will make decisions for the court. The programs that we have in place to kind of also encourage this, one that I am really happy that they've adopted is paternity leave. So we're actually offering a paid leave for all parents. Foster care and adoption is included in that as well, which I actually had a foster child in 2016 before the policy was implemented. And it really would have helped a lot with that work-life balance and everything else that was going on, and ensuring that I didn't have my work suffer and having the time that I needed to take him to all of the appointments and everything that was happening. We're also going to be building a daycare within the court. So it will also be, I believe the formula they came up with was the average of the tuition across the state, 50%. So it would be a cheaper option for daycare for a lot of our employees. And again, trying to get parents into the workplace, but giving them an easier way to have that work-life balance, knowing their kids are right downstairs if they need something. I also think that as the culture progresses, we need to progress. And we're so quick to want to jump on things like new technology, like AI is a big new technology that we're all kind of talking about. With that comes cultural changes. We need to be open to embracing that. In the 60s, we went to the moon, which was great, huge development for us as the whole human species. We also in the United States had the landmark case Loving v. Virginia, which had it not passed, I don't know if I would be here today because my grandparents were an interracial couple. So embracing those sorts of changes is going to make us a better court, and will look like the community that we serve. And therefore we will have more trust from that community.
Courtney, On career development and growth opportunities, many young workers seek continuous learning and professional development. They are concerned about stagnation. I know my little ADHD brain is always going a million miles an hour and I can't stay still most of the time. But most young workers expect their employers to offer new career paths, training programs, and opportunities for advancement. How do you communicate and offer opportunities for young workers in your court?
I think it starts in the interview, right? I mean, you're talking about that individual, you're laying out the construct, the structure of your department, and once they come on board, that has to continue through the onboarding process. For us in our court, we have departmental expectations, and a new hire would sign on to those. They're given a book that includes our purposes, our roles, who's who in the court, how you grow with the court, what the succession plan looks like. And it's just a constant theme that's carried throughout the court. For myself as director, I'm very big on continuing education and going out and proactively seeking additional education. So we do require education every year. Professional membership opportunities are made available, but anything, right? Like I want it to be job related. Like I'm not going to approve a training on basket weaving, right? Because we don't basket weave. So it has to be relevant to what we're doing, but also understanding the structure, right? And making sure that we're driving home the foundations. And we talked about the why earlier, and understanding what our actual charges and how we facilitate that, and making sure that people understand that serving in the court, you truly are serving your community. And we want to make sure that people embrace that role. I think the other part that is equally of importance is to encourage growth, is to let people play active roles in decision making. So I, as the director, I have many years under my belt as a clerk and as a supervisor, as a court administrator, but in order for people to grow into those roles, they have to understand what that role looks like. So if I'm looking to implement a new policy or procedure or whatever, I will ask those people like, hey, what do you think this looks like? And I'll just pick somebody at random and like send them some type of instruction on a new process and go, hey, run through this. Does this make sense? They're the ones that are doing it every day, right? So you're letting them actively play a role. And it goes across the board. They actively play a role if there's any unfortunate disciplinary issues that happen to come about. What does that look like? Mentor programs, opportunities for cross-training, just making sure that those are available to everybody. And it's constantly driven home that growth and education is an expectation here, not an option. So if that's not something that you're looking for, then this may not be the best fit for you. But I think that really does start in the interview process.
That is fabulous for sure. And we're kind of doing the same here. Every year we have something called a Cultivating Court Professionals Conference. And it's quite literally 2 days of the entire courthouse coming together for training seminars. One of the training seminars we had this year was about leadership, and it specifically talked about how regular workers can do the right training, do the right things in order to move up and advance into leadership positions or be leaders in their own position. So I'm glad that we are offering those possibilities. But anybody else, what other career opportunities and growth are you doing in your courthouses?
Idaho has recently, they started at the beginning of this year. They partnered with National Center for State Courts to offer an Idaho specific CCM course, which was really nice, which I had already previously taken one CCM course, but of course that was nationwide. And so this one was only with Idaho and court employees. So we could really, speak about Idaho specific things. And then they're offering 2 more CCM courses next year.
Utah, I'll mention one thing Utah has done. And we have, so every year we have a leadership academy. That's what we call it. So it's specific for individuals who are not in a supervisory role that, as mentioned before, want to either advance to a leadership position at some point or be leaders where they're at. I think that's one of the things I love that you mentioned that a minute ago, because it's true. We can be leaders in whichever space we're in the way that we go about things. And so it's a week-long sort of, well, this year it was a little different. It was like 2 days at a time, 2 days every month. And we have individuals from across the state, from every district. And we focus on what equipping them for leadership positions in their future. I have to say, I went through those academies and I loved them. And so I can say that I'm a product of those leadership academies.
I think another fabulous thing that Courtney touched upon is the reaching out to everybody that's included. Like I said, I supervise a bunch of clerks, and the vast majority of the time, the number one complaint I get from them is, well, why didn't they just ask us? We're the ones in the courtroom. So I think opening up ourselves to having everybody included in that sense is really going to help with them feeling included, them feeling a part of things, and advancing their knowledge as well, because they are the ones in the courtroom. They are the ones who know what they're doing. So including them, I think, is essential in making sure that they have that development for themselves, that they have a voice. So I know this was the 5 biggest issues for young workers, but it feels like we somehow twisted it towards opportunities. So I think that is fantastic that we still took these issues and somehow made them positive in a lot of ways. So that is it for now, though. We will talk about the 5 biggest opportunities for young workers next time. So thank you all for joining me today, and we will pause for now.
I want to thank Erika, Samantha, Victoria, Carrie, Courtney, and Daniel for their perceptions and assessments of the 5 biggest issues facing young workers. These are the topics on the minds of young job candidates today. It's wise for us to also remember them as we look for the employees of tomorrow. As always, my thanks to you, court professionals, tuning into today's episode. Despite having questions, you continue to work professionally and with loyalty. Thank you. Join us on Tuesday, January 21st, for the next episode dealing with the 5 biggest opportunities facing young workers today. This has been the Court Leaders Advantage podcast series. I'm Pete Kiefer, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us today. The Court Leaders Advantage is a regular podcast series on courts and court administration. Today's episode will be available on our website, on the Court Leader website, on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, LinkedIn, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. Become part of the conversation. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, email us. Our address is podcasts@nacomnet.org. Did you hear an interesting comment by one of the panelists that you would like to listen to again, but you don't want to search the entire episode to find it? The additional resources section of the webpage has a question time marker sheet. Find the discussion question on the sheet, and next to it is the time that question was asked. You can quickly fast forward to that time and listen to the panelists' comments. Remember, if you don't have time to watch an episode, you can always listen to the audio version. Listen in your car or on the bus on your way to or from work. You never have to miss an episode. I'm Pete Kiefer, and on behalf of our guests, the Court Leader website, and the National Association for Court Management, thank you, and have a great day. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the host and the individual presenters. They do not necessarily represent the position of the National Association for Court Management.